Go.
Okay, we're in Torah Hey, called BaChatzotzrot, and we're in part 3. And we were learning about this this tremendous tikkun. Basically, it's in a deeper explanation, the mechanism behind what Chazal say, Hakol me'orer kavana, that the voice awakens the kavana of a person. The kavana is the alignment of a person's heart. What's really interesting is if you look in the Zohar, many places it speaks about the kavana of how a person should be praying, and it says that a person should awaken his mouth, piv, velibo, veritzono. Those are the three things: the mouth and your heart and your ratzon. So based on this Torah, we can understand very wonderfully what the Zohar is intending here, that these are the 3 points in this awakening of the kavana, because the goal, the objective is to align our heart with our ratzon. The heart is, when the heart is rectified, because we spoke about a heart that is crooked, a crooked heart, and then alignment of the heart, straightening out of the heart, a purification of the heart. The objective in that is to rectify the nefesh bahamit, which is basically all of these negative fallen midot of the heart, so that the heart is purified and aligned, realigned with the nefesh elokit, with the soul, the holy soul of a person. And that's the dat elyon, that's the holy ratzon of the soul, the inner will, the highest. It's not an ego will, it's a will from the deepest place within our soul, the will of the neshama. And when the heart is aligned with that, right, so you have, let's say, the ratzon up here, and if the heart is crooked and the heart is full of all these blocks, so then the heart point is all the way on the side, right? The heart is on the small, on the left side. That's what the Gemara describes it, and we have to bring it back and realign it so that it can receive the light of the ratzon, of the neshama, the divine essence of a person's soul. And then that's when a person experiences joy, real happiness, right? Because joy and happiness is in the heart. Tata simcha b'libi, Rabbi Nachman brings the pasuk. You have put happiness in my heart. So what do I experience the happiness? It's in my heart. The source of it is not the heart, right? The source of that happiness is something that is received in the heart, and when that light is received in the heart, because the heart is realigned with it, so then you can experience it as joy, as happiness. Okay, and so that how do we achieve that? So we achieve that, Rabbi Nachman said, first with the mouth. The mouth needs to be speaking words of gevura and yira. So what does it mean, words of gevura? It means that the words are coming out in a powerful way, right? So it's about in the top of your lungs, you're screaming it out in a powerful way with all your strength, right? That's one aspect, one description of what it means, words of gevura, of how these words should be coming out of your mouth. And the other description is that it should be words of yira, words of fear, meaning that should be words that come out of a deep sense of awe of the Ribono Shel Olam. And that's what it means, words of fear. So these are both 2 different aspects of yira, of gevura, of the same thing. And when these words of gevura and yira come out of your mouth, whether it's tefillah, even though Rabbi Nachman is speaking about it here in context of tefillah, of prayer, but it's also in Limud Torah. We see in other places in Likutei Moharan where he speaks about the tikkun that is done, for example, in Torah Chavbet, we're going to see this, the tikkun that's done when a person is learning Torah with a powerful, with this powerful voice. Yes?
Good.
Okay, so these words of gevura and yira, they meet up with what's called the rain clouds, they vibrate within the rain clouds, and the rain clouds represent the consciousness of a person, the chokhmah of a person. And what happens from that is that the rain clouds amplify that vibration of the words of Yira. They amplify them, and some reaction happens in the rain clouds that the rain clouds start giving these drops of rain. Obviously, this is all metaphorically speaking, and so that's the drops of rain is the effect, the influence, the inspiration that comes from the Chokhmah consciousness that goes within a person's heart. So it's this circular motion, comes back down into the heart of a person, and now it clears out any crookedness of the heart, any blocks, any emotional blocks in that heart, any impurities of the heart, and it realigns the heart with a higher consciousness to receive the joy and the happiness in a perfect way. Okay, so I think based on that, now with that, we can continue on here. וזה פירוש גיבורי כוח עושה דברו לשמוע בכל דברו. This is the explanation of the Zohar, of the pasuk that says in Tehillim that the Gibore Koach, those that the mighty, full of strength, the strong and mighty, who do Hashem's bidding by listening to Hashem, the sound of Hashem's word. And the Zohar explains, what does that mean? That these strong and mighty who fulfill Hashem's will, who fulfill Hashem's bidding, what Hashem has commanded, by listening to the sound of His voice. The Zohar explains, Hainu alidei gvurot ita bazor zachya nemishma kalim mil'ela. The Zohar explains on this pasuk in Tehillim that they merit to hear the sound, the voices from above. What does that mean? So says Rabbi Nachman, through these gevuras, these words of gevura and yira that come out of a person's mouth, we said that becomes thunder. When it vibrates within the rain clouds, that is amplified, and there's a reaction in the rain clouds that gives thunder, either thunder or rain. These are both two ways of seeing it, two different sources. But that's what thunder comes from. Okay, and that thunder is heard to the people of the world. And what does that mean that's heard by the people of the world? It means that's the influence and the inspiration goes into the heart and clears the heart out from many of the blocks. So through that thunder, the heart is awakened to actually hear. Right? To hear deeply, to deeply understand, to deeply connect to the words. And so that's also the explanation of the pasuk that says that the contemplation of Maharat will be understanding. And also, like it says in the pasuk, that you gave your servant a heart that is listening. Okay, so what is this heart that's listening, and what is this contemplation of my heart to be understanding, right? All of these are descriptions of this state of the heart that's opened and awakened and cleared out from all of the blocks and realigned so that it can receive the light in a clear way, in a deep way. V'gam divarav nishma'im. And one of the effects of this is also that a person's words will be heard. Nishma'in leviryata. Welcome back. And also his words are heard, transmitted to the people, to the creation. V'zeu lishmoa b'kol devaro. And that's what it means to hear, they're able to hear the sound of his words. So all of this is to explain this pasuk in Tehillim, that the strong and the mighty, they create, they fulfill his word in order, and they're able to hear his word. So what does that mean? That means that through these words of Gevura, that's the strong and the mighty, the words of the Gevura, that creates thunder. And that thunder, it causes this effect that the heart is able to hear, that the people are able to hear. That's what it means here, that the Giboy Koach, the strong and the mighty, create the word. Creating the word meaning they create the thunder through those words of Gevurah. And that thunder causes the ability for the heart, or for the people, the creation, to hear his word. Okay, so that's the explanation of the pasuk in Tehillim. V'zeh bechinat kol hashofar. All of this is to say, all of this is included in the tikkun of the shofar. Da shofar shel ayil. He says the shofar is the aspect of the ram, right? It's the horn of the ram. And what's the ram signify? The symbolize the lamb the ram symbolizes, represents the lamb of Yitzchak, Elu shel Yitzchak, which is the aspect of Gevurah, Bechinat v'Ram Gevurotav, which is the aspect of the thunder of his Gevurot. So the call of the shofar is this voice of Gevurah that comes out, and then that causes this effect, this vibration, to be amplified in the rain clouds, and that causes the heart to hear the thunder, and to be realigned. V'zeu ashrei ha'am yodei teruah. That's the meaning of the pasuk in Tehillim. Happy is the nation who knows the blast of the shofar. Yodei daika. Specifically, they know. They don't just hear or listen to the sound of the shofar. They know. Knowing is a deep connection, something that's happening internally, an inner state that's being created here through the shofar. That is what it means, that they know the blast of the shofar. Shivga kol bamoach, that the kol, the sound of the shofar, it hits the consciousness of the chokhmah, bechinot ove mitra, which is the aspect of the rain clouds. And then it's converted into this aspect of thunder. He says here an interesting point based on this Torah, that is gula, that a person should not be worried of fear from thunder. Some people, they suffer from a fear of thunder. How is a person saved from that? He says if a person hears the shofar on Rosh Hashanah from somebody that has Yirat Shamayim, so that shofar is truly a sound of Gevurah, of Yira, that causes a thunder, an internal thunder, that's of holiness, an internal thunder in a rectified state that completely wipes out the alternative thunder of the outside thunder that could be destructive, that could be harmful, difficult for some people because of certain fears. So this is a big rule. This is a big rule that we have in many places in Kabbalah and Chassidut, that whenever there is something on the outside, and a person that could be destructive, could be painful, and a person experiences that instead in its rectified state, so then that rectified state of experience, it saves the person from the fragmented and disconnected state of that same thing. So this is a beautiful example. So thunder, there's two types of thunder. There's a thunder that you have on the outside in a thunderstorm, that a person can have fear, and his heart is full of confusion and fear, of fallen midah of fear. And then there's an inner thunder, that's the heart that's listening, hearing this expression, full expression of the voice, a full expression of the vibration of the voice of Gevurah. And so when you have that on the inside in a rectified way, in its proper state, so then you're saved from it on the outside in a destructive and a harmful way. And so that's where this skula comes from, that if you hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah from someone that's truly fearing, God-fearing, and his shofar blowing comes from his fear of Hashem, so you're experiencing that state internally in a proper way, that holy thunder on the inside, and that's why you would be saved the rest of the year. He said, don't be anxious of any anxieties any fears that may come from thunder. Okay, and this, he says, is alluded to in the pasuk, the explanation of the pasuk. It's speaking about Har Sinai. It says, with the sounds of thunder and lightning, you reveal yourself to them, and with the sound of the shofar, you appear to them. Meaning that you appear to them through the sound of the shofar, and you protected them from thunder and lightning. Meaning that through the shofar, in a proper way of hearing the shofar from a real, true Yirei Shamayim, will protect you from thunder and lightning on the outside. Okay. Aval, now, Daled, next part 4. So now if you want this tikkun to happen in a better, clearer, more effective way, then you also need to pay attention and remove any of the blocks of the chokhmah consciousness. So you have to clear out your chokhmah consciousness from secular wisdom and undesirable thoughts, from disconnected chokhmah, from a block of chokhmah. Any of the outside chokhmah will cause a block to the inner holy chokhmah. And so you have to clear your chokhmah consciousness from the undesirable chokhmah, from the secular and mundane chokhmah. That's what he says here. From clear your chokhmah consciousness from secular wisdom and from undesirable thoughts, because that's chametz. That causes blocks in the chokhmah, from the holy chokhmah. So that you don't cause sourness, you don't sour your wisdom with the secular wisdom and with destructive passions. So that יתאבד ממנו רעם, אבל כשגלגל דמוך אטום בטומאה, כמו שכתוב ונטמאתם בם, אזי אין קולו נשמע. He says, why is this important? He says, because when this voice of Yira and Gevura, of fear of Hashem, this voice of Gevura goes and hits the rain clouds, which is the Chokhmah consciousness, if that Chokhmah consciousness is full of these undesirable thoughts and philosophies and desires, all of these destructive things in the consciousness that sour and block the Chachma consciousness, so then the voice of Gevura that came within this Chachma consciousness will not be transformed into thunder, because that Chachma consciousness is blocked. And he brings proof to this, like it says in the Pasuk, V'nitmeitem bam. The Pasuk in Vayikra tells us that when a person eats food that's not kosher, it causes him to be tummy. It brings a person to tuma. But the word that the pasuk uses, "v'nitmeitem bam," means that you shall become impure, is written without an aleph. Usually tame has an aleph. And the reason the Chazal explain on this is that "v'nitmeitem" without an aleph can also be read from the same source word, meaning timtum. Timtum means to be closed off. And so that's the effect that happens from eating non-kosher. The impurities are really a closing off, a block. And that's the proof, that's the example that Rabbi Nachman is bringing from that pasuk, from that Gemara, that when a person is impure, or he does things or eats things or lives his way in a destructive way, lives his life in a destructive way that causes him impurities, those impurities block him from receiving the light. And so that's what happens here. If a person brings impure thoughts, philosophies, and secular wisdom and whatnot in his mind, in his thinking, so then that blocks it from being able to receive the light. So now even if a person will have those words of Gevura and Yira, the consciousness of Chachma is blocked off from that impurity and not able to receive it. And so then nothing is happening from it. Nothing is, that thunder doesn't come about. So as Gam Yishmor Yira'ato. So that's one thing a person has to take care of. Make sure that you don't defile your Chachma consciousness. Second thing a person wants to make sure, in order to amplify the effect of this tikkun that we're speaking about, the holy thunder, is to make sure that you have proper Yirat Shamayim. So if you remember a couple weeks ago, we spoke about then everything in Avodat Hashem, whenever you want a spiritual experience, a holy spiritual experience, Ruach HaKodesh, prophecy, you want real results, so then there's two aspects a person has to focus on. There is the positive aspect, what it exactly that I have to add, what exactly I need to do, what are the mechanisms involved with that. And then there's a negative aspect, I need to remove any of the blocks, so that's not watered down, so that it has its complete effect. And so after Rabbi Nachman at the beginning of the Torah explained the Aseh Tov, what it is that I am to do, and that's the whole thing with the words of Gevura going into the Chachma consciousness, transforming into thunder that clear out the heart. Now he's giving us all the points, all the steps to make sure that this is the most effective. So don't do anything that will be harmful or destructive to that tikkun happening. And the way, the first thing he says is make sure that you don't defile your Chachma consciousness with all of these foreign thoughts and philosophies and thinking. Second thing he says now is make sure that the Yirah, which is where the voice is coming out from, it should be coming a voice out of Yira and Gevura, it should be protected. That's what he says here. Gam Yishmor Yirato, shemimenu totzaot hakol, kemo shekatuv v'ra'am gevurotav, shelo yeh lo yira chitzonit. So now he says that you have to make sure that the fear of Hashem that you have, which is where your voice is coming from, your voice is coming out of Gevura and Yira of Hashem, make sure that it has not been destroyed or watered down or defiled with an outside fallen fear. So if a person is experiencing a lot of anxieties and fears that are disconnected from Hashem, and the voice that he's speaking to Hashem comes out of that, so then the Yira is impure. That Yira is not effective to be able to cause that amplified vibration in the rain clouds that will be transformed into the thunder. So this is the second point, and that's why he ends off by saying, he brings us Mishnah and Masechet Avot, and Mishnah and Masechet Avot says, if there's no Chachma, there's no Yira, and if there's no Yira, there's no Chachma. So what does that mean? That means exactly what he just said. He said that if you have a block in the Chachma consciousness, so then you don't have that thunder that will cause the tikkun, the thunder which is the Yira. And if you don't have the Yira at the beginning of the voice, right? That Yira is a pure fear of Hashem. Instead, the fear of that person is full of other fallen fears and anxieties. So then you can't have that effect in the Chachma consciousness. So if you don't have a proper clear Chachma, then you don't have the Yira, the thunder that comes from it. And if you with the pure, proper, holy thunder, and if you don't have a proper Yira, the first Yira, the Yira where the voice comes from, because the person is experiencing all these disconnected fears and anxieties, so then you don't have that effect in the Chachma. So that's the way he explains this in the Mishnah. I think this is a good place to stop for today. Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
You stopped the